From the moment a man is old enough to understand language, he is fed a lie so sweet, so noble sounding, that he carries it with pride like a badge of honor. That lie is, hard work leads to success. It is the creed of the obedient, the anthem of the expendable. It is not a truth, it is a tool, a masterstroke of psychological warfare designed to keep the masses occupied, worn down, and blind to the reality that surrounds them. For the man who works the hardest is often not the one who reaps the fruit. He is the one who plants the seed, waters the soil, and dies in the field, while another, watching from the shade, claims the harvest as his own. Society does not want you to see the game. It wants you to believe that effort equals progress, that suffering guarantees reward. But those who rule do not rise through sweat. They rise through sight. They rise because they understand that hard work is a performance designed for the many, while strategy is a silent ritual practiced by the few. The world runs on invisible chains forged by ideologies like hard work and dedication. Chains that bind the limbs of the man who believes that labor is his only path. He may climb the ladder, but the ladder itself is owned by another. And no matter how high he ascends, he remains a prisoner of another man's design. The controller, the one who never breaks a sweat, is not lazy, he is lethal. He watches the laborers from the shadows, studies their routines, understands their weaknesses. He learns the patterns of their ambition, their hunger for recognition, their thirst for purpose. And with that knowledge, he builds a system that rewards just enough to keep them moving, but never enough to let them escape. He tells them they are noble. He tells them they are the backbone of civilization, and they believe it. Because they need to. Because if they didn't, they'd see the truth, that their lives are being spent for another man's dream. The controller never competes where effort is the metric. He competes in silence, in manipulation, in foresight. He walks into a room and speaks like a friend, but thinks like a predator. He doesn't push the wheel. He makes others push it for him. And when the wheel turns and grinds and crushes, he steps back, untouched, admired even, as if his presence alone brought progress. He positions himself as the architect, not the mason, the commander, not the foot soldier. And because he doesn't wear the mask of struggle, others mistake his calm for weakness. But it is the calm of a man who knows he has already won. The myth of hard work is maintained because it serves the system. It keeps men too tired to revolt, too distracted to scheme, too hopeful to question. They wake up each morning with fire in their hearts and calluses on their hands, and return home each night with empty energy and fading dreams. But they don't stop because they've been told that to stop is to fail, that to question the path is disloyal. They have been conditioned to associate morality with toil, virtue with exhaustion. But what is moral about dying in a race you were never meant to win? The controller does not speak of hard work. He speaks of leverage, influence, structure. He speaks of using ideas instead of muscles, networks instead of effort. He knows that the one who writes the rules doesn't need to play the game. He can change the board, move the goalposts, reset the clock. And while others are sprinting in circles, he is walking in a straight line toward dominance. This is not laziness. It is a higher form of intelligence. It is an understanding that in a world where men compete to outwork each other, the most dangerous thing you can do is step outside the game and own the rules instead. Hard work is for the controlled because it keeps the mind focused on the immediate, the visible, the tangible. It makes a man feel useful, purposeful, valuable. But that feeling is the very mechanism of his capture. The controller offers just enough illusion of progress to keep the laborer loyal. A promotion here, a pat on the back there, a small raise, a meaningless title. And the laborer, starved for validation, accepts it as proof that he is advancing, but he is not. He is simply being repositioned on the same chessboard, still a pawn, still disposable. He believes he is winning because he has not yet seen the game being played above his head. A man who lives by the clock, who wakes at the same time each day, performs the same routine, and prides himself on consistency, is the easiest man to control. Predictability is not a virtue, it is a vulnerability. The more obedient a laborer becomes, the more mechanical his actions, the more exploitable he is by those who understand power. When a man ties his identity to his output, he becomes a machine disguised as a human. His value is determined not by who he is, but by what he produces. And once that production slows or fails to serve its master, he is discarded, forgotten, and replaced without ceremony. The great error of the working man is believing that effort alone grants him significance. He thinks that the sweat on his brow and the hours he gives to a system are marks of character, but they are only evidence of his programming. The truly powerful do not strive to be seen as loyal workers. They strive to remain unseen, untouched by obligation, yet always pulling strings in the background. Meanwhile, the obedient man becomes a perfect cog, reliable in function, blind to the larger mechanism. He is praised for his dedication, for his discipline, for his sacrifice. But what he calls honor, others call utility. He is trained to follow instructions, to respond to orders, to wait for approval. His days are built on repetition, his ambitions confined within schedules and contracts. The more he gives, the more is taken, and yet he never questions the arrangement, because he has been conditioned to see questions as rebellion and rebellion as failure. He fears being called lazy more than being called disposable. So he continues day after day, convincing himself that his sacrifice has purpose. But in reality, it is only useful to someone who never sacrifices anything at all. Predictable men are weapons in the hands of those who never dirty theirs. Their emotions are easy to manipulate. Praise keeps them loyal, fear keeps them silent, and hope keeps them moving. They are granted just enough reward to stay motivated, but never enough to become independent. They are taught to find dignity in servitude, to see obedience as a sign of greatness. But dignity means nothing to a man whose life is entirely in the hands of others. He may live with pride, but he dies with regrets. His value was always determined by someone else's needs. These men are praised as the backbone of society, and rightly so, because every empire requires a foundation, and the best foundations never move. They must remain still, supportive, unthinking. Those who work hard and follow orders without hesitation become the perfect base for the ambitions of the elite. They are taught to avoid risk, to fear unpredictability, to reject chaos. But chaos is where freedom is born. The man who never questions, who never disobeys, who never breaks rhythm, can never lead. He can only serve. And the most dangerous part of all is that he believes he is doing the right thing. He believes his role is noble. This belief is the final chain. For once a man becomes emotionally attached to his own captivity, he will defend it with his life. He will mock the rebels, distrust the thinkers, and condemn the free. He will protect the very system that exploits him, because it gives him identity. It gives him routine. It gives him just enough to feel like he matters. And so he never asks why his life feels small, why his future feels decided, why his dreams remain distant. Men like this are not useless. They are incredibly useful to those who need armies of silent laborers. They are used in every industry, every government, every institution. Their reliability is a currency. Their silence is a resource. Their dedication is a leash. And yet they smile they shake hands, they celebrate small wins as if they own the war. They see themselves as pillars of society, never realizing they are just scaffolding, temporary, replaceable, designed to support the structure until it no longer needs them. Obedient labor does not create free men. It creates functioning units. It produces individuals who no longer think for themselves, who wait for instruction, who fear deviation. The more a man conforms, the more his soul fades into the background of someone else's agenda. His hands may build cities, but his mind remains in chains. And he accepts this because he has been told it is honorable. But honor, when assigned by a master, is not honor at all. It is compliance disguised as character. It is the praise given to a tool for performing exactly as expected. And once it breaks or hesitates, it is cast aside without thanks, without memory, without value. There is a reason the most powerful men are rarely seen holding tools, lifting burdens, or breaking their backs to earn their place. It is not because they are lazy. It is because they understand the highest law of control. Command the labor of others, and you command the world. The man who toils, who spends his life in physical exertion, believes in a direct relationship between effort and outcome. But the man who rules knows the true equation is not effort equals reward. It is leverage equals dominance. The most dangerous man is not the one who works, but the one who makes others work for him, without ever revealing the full nature of the game. The illusion of fairness is the first tool in this manipulation. Leaders, employers, and institutions wrap commands in the language of opportunity. They present labor as a path to success, a noble duty, a personal responsibility. But what they are truly offering is a trade. Your time, energy, and life force in exchange for just enough compensation to keep you obedient. The real wealth is not in the wages, it's in the ownership of your effort. When you give your labor to another man's vision, you are building his throne, not your own. And he ensures you never notice by paying you just enough to make it feel like a choice. Power is the ability to influence behavior without resistance. And nothing makes that easier than controlling someone's livelihood. Once a man's survival depends on the approval of another, his freedom becomes an illusion. He will regulate his speech, his thoughts, and even his desires to remain useful. That is the brilliance of manipulation. It does not require force. It requires a system so efficient that the oppressed believe they are free. And within this system, the manipulator thrives. He does not raise his voice. He raises expectations. He does not shout orders. He creates incentives. And the people, desperate for survival and significance, carry out his will with pride. He studies the desires of the laborers. He learns their ambitions, their fears, their hunger for recognition. Then he uses those desires to bind them. He offers promotions instead of purpose, titles instead of truth. He creates competition among them so they never unite against him. He feeds them the illusion that they are advancing, climbing, moving forward. But in reality, they are running in place, moving faster only to remain where he wants them. Every extra hour they work, every task they complete, every sacrifice they make, enriches him further. And yet they thank him for the opportunity. The true manipulator never appears oppressive. In fact, he is often admired. He presents himself as a visionary, a mentor, a provider. He masks his control in charisma, his greed in generosity. And because he does not appear tyrannical, his power is never questioned. His workers feel loyal to him, even when their labor serves only his ambition. That is the perfection of the design, when the controlled defend their controller, even against their own best interest. The manipulator's strength lies not in deception alone, but in the creation of emotional dependence. He does not need to chain their bodies. he chains their loyalty. He controls narratives. He sets the tone of what is respectable, what is expected, what is honorable. The workers adopt these ideas without resistance, enforcing them among each other. They become self-policing. They discourage rebellion. They shame the lazy, praise the overworked, mock the skeptic. All of this serves the manipulator's goal: obedience without enforcement, loyalty without coercion. He becomes invisible, a ghost in the machine, directing lives from the shadows with nothing more than carefully placed beliefs and manufactured needs. And in this hierarchy, the more someone works, the less they control. The more effort they give, the more predictable they become. But the manipulator grows stronger with every ounce of someone else's energy. His empire is built not with his own hands, but with the hands of men convinced they are free. While they measure their lives in hours worked, he measures his in empires gained. He wins by never entering the field. He wins by designing the field. He owns the clock, the rulebook, the reward system. And as long as the laborers keep believing the myth of merit, he remains untouchable. He doesn't inspire with truth, he inspires with illusion. He gives them something to chase, something just out of reach, so they never stop running. He whispers promises that become purpose in their minds. And as they chase this phantom, he moves quietly in the background, redirecting their labor to feed his future. While they dream of freedom, he calculates their limits. While they struggle for position, he rearranges the system. And all the while, he never breaks a sweat, never lifts a finger, never earns with effort. Because his skill is not in labor. It is in the manipulation of labor itself. Society dresses labor in moral robes. It elevates toil to a virtue and exhaustion to a badge of honor. From childhood, men are taught that to work hard is to be good, to serve without question is to be righteous, and to sacrifice without reward is a mark of moral superiority. This illusion is not innocent. It is engineered. It is a psychological cage built to keep men compliant, humble, and docile. The morality of work is not designed to elevate the worker. It is designed to neutralize him. It transforms what should be questioned into something sacred and thus untouchable. The man who works tirelessly is often praised not for his results, but for his effort. He is told that his suffering is meaningful, that his fatigue makes him noble. But what does nobility matter when it leads nowhere? What use is moral labor if it does not grant the man control over his own destiny? The trap lies in this. Once a man believes his suffering is virtuous, he will protect it. He will reject any path that appears easier, any strategy that promises power without struggle, because it violates the false god of hard-earned virtue. He becomes emotionally invested in his own exploitation. Power structures depend on this belief. They require men to endure pain willingly and feel proud of it. The illusion must be strong enough to make a man suffer and still smile, and it often is. The worker will look at his cracked hands, his tired eyes, his fading youth, and whisper to himself that it's worth it, because it's the right thing to do. This illusion blinds him to the truth that morality, as it relates to work, has been corrupted. It is no longer about justice, fairness, or human dignity. It is about control, and nothing controls better than the belief that obedience is righteous. Those who rise to power understand this dynamic perfectly. They do not reject morality, they wear it like a mask. They speak of duty, honor, and sacrifice not because they believe in these things, but because others do. They present themselves as fellow laborers, fellow believers, all while positioning themselves far above the burdens they preach. Their hands are clean, their time is free, and yet they command the loyalty of men who bleed for ideals they do not question. This is the genius of moralized labor. It creates willing servants, not slaves. The higher the moral pedestal, the deeper the trap. A man who sees his job as merely a means of survival can eventually walk away. But a man who sees it as his duty, his purpose, his identity, he cannot leave. He becomes chained not by laws or contracts, but by his own internal code. He polices himself. He suppresses his doubts. He silences the voice that tells him something is wrong. Because to admit the truth would mean his suffering was in vain. And that is a truth too bitter for most men to face. This is why rebellion rarely begins with the hardworking. They are the last to question, the last to resist, the last to see. Their moral pride becomes their blindfold. They cannot imagine that the system which praises them could also be using them, but it is. The praise is strategic. It is given not to uplift, but to pacify. It is a substitute for freedom, a soft reward that keeps the man content enough to never ask for more. And in this way, the illusion sustains itself. The worker becomes both the prisoner and the warden of his own cell. True power lies not in effort, but in perception. He who shapes the values of others can rule without ever revealing his hand. If a man can be made to believe that toil is virtue, he will volunteer for his own subjugation. He will outwork his peers, suffer his enemies, and outlast his own instincts, all while believing he is the hero of the story. But he is not the hero. He is the pawn, moved across the board by an invisible player who speaks in the language of morals. And the more he believes in the sanctity of his struggle, the easier he is to direct. The morality of work is not absolute, it is a narrative. And like all narratives, it can be weaponized. It can be shaped to serve the storyteller, not the subject. When hard work is glorified without question, it becomes the perfect disguise for exploitation. It convinces the strong to stay silent, the capable to stay small, and the ambitious to keep their eyes down. It praises the laborer not to elevate him, but to keep him invested in a game he will never win. And so he works day after day, convinced that his virtue will save him, never realizing that virtue, when handed down from above, is often just another form of obedience. The modern world loves to repeat the mantra "work smarter, not harder," as if this shallow shift in method is some grand breakthrough. But those who truly rule, those who shape history from behind the curtain, know that even working smart is a trap if you are still the one doing the work. The ultimate power is not in the labor, nor in the cleverness of how it's done, but in avoiding it altogether while others do it in your name, for your gain, under the illusion that it benefits them. To rule smarter means to move above the game itself, to control the players, the board, and the rules without ever breaking a sweat. The one who rules smarter appears harmless, supportive, and fair. But beneath the surface, he is a predator of precision. He builds empires not with tools, but with tactics. This is the realm where strategy replaces effort, where appearance replaces truth, and where systems become the silent engines of wealth and influence. The one who rules smarter doesn't merely avoid work. He creates mechanisms that multiply the labor of others for his own ends. These systems can look like businesses, like belief structures, like institutions, even like friendships, but all serve the same core function: to extract energy from the many and channel it into the vision of the one. And what makes it dangerous is that it never looks like domination. It looks like opportunity, like leadership, like wisdom. Those caught in the system don't see chains, they see a ladder, a chance to climb, and so they give willingly, thinking they are rising, not realizing they are only helping another man rise higher, faster, and without burden. The one who rules smarter understands timing, perception, and delegation. He is never the loudest in the room, never the most visibly ambitious. Instead, he cloaks his ambition in calm, his dominance in humility. He lets others speak, act, and toil while he observes. And when he moves, it is with precision, not pressure. He inserts ideas into the minds of others so subtly that they believe the thoughts were their own. He avoids confrontation when manipulation will suffice. He avoids commands when suggestion will achieve more. And when praise must be given, he gives it generously, so that loyalty becomes emotional, not contractual. He does not compete on the same field as those beneath him. While they fight over wages, promotions, and status, he modifies the structure they're fighting within. He adjusts incentives, rewrites goals, and introduces illusions of progress that keep the machine running. His focus is not on doing more, it is on controlling more. He doesn't dream of working more efficiently. He dreams of owning the process entirely. Because once you control the structure, it doesn't matter how hard or smart anyone else works. It all feeds into your design. That is the mastery of ruling smarter. This kind of ruler rarely needs to punish or reward directly. The system does that for him. A glance of approval here, a whisper of recognition there, and the people continue to chase validation. They self-regulate, self-motivate, self-sacrifice. They build his world brick by brick, believing it is their own. And because they feel seen, they remain blind. That's the brilliance of it all. The ruler is barely visible. He doesn't need to micromanage because he understands the human need for purpose, status, and belonging. He engineers these into his system so that control becomes invisible and power becomes effortless. The ruler's life is not one of stress or overextension. He has learned to separate value from labor. He understands that time is more powerful than effort. While others trade time for money, he trades vision for time. He plants an idea, and that idea grows into a movement. He builds a system, and that system produces wealth indefinitely. And all the while, others applaud him for his leadership, never realizing they are applauding their own confinement. This is not about intellect alone. It is about will. The will to detach from the morality of struggle, to reject the need to prove oneself through toil, and to embrace the reality that domination requires distance. The one who rules smarter understands that empathy must be calculated, that kindness must serve strategy, and that every connection, every alliance, every gesture must either protect power or expand it. He has no interest in being seen as superior, only in being untouchable. While others chase admiration, he chases leverage. While others build reputations, he builds systems. And while others burn out trying to get ahead, he remains still, watching, waiting, adjusting, ruling. The man who works smart may rise above the man who works hard, but the man who rules smart rises above them both, not because he is faster or stronger, but because he no longer plays the same game. He writes the game, shapes the field, and ensures that no matter who wins, it always benefits him. The world does not reward effort, it rewards control. The myth of hard work has been carefully crafted to keep men loyal to systems they do not own, chasing success through obedience, exhausting themselves in service of another's design. From the moment they are old enough to follow instructions, they are told that labor is noble, that sweat is sacred, and that the path to greatness lies in tireless sacrifice. But this is not truth, it is strategy, a lie whispered by those who never intend to carry the weight themselves. Obedient labor creates predictable men. Predictable men are easy to use, easy to manipulate, easy to replace. They become tools in the hands of those who understand the machinery of power. Those who rule do not lift, they move others. They do not toil, they orchestrate. They do not work, they think. The truly powerful man is not the one covered in sweat, but the one surrounded by those who are convinced it's their destiny. And in this grand illusion, morality becomes the leash. Men are taught to take pride in their struggle, to see suffering as righteousness. But the morality of labor is not a virtue, it is a weapon. It is a mechanism of control, binding a man to his place with invisible chains. It ensures he praises his own captivity, protects the very system that consumes him, and mocks the freedom he secretly craves. The man who escapes this illusion is not the hardest worker, nor even the smartest. He is the one who steps back, sees the game for what it is, and refuses to play the role written for him. He does not seek to earn a place, he seeks to build the structure. He does not run faster. He removes himself from the race entirely and buys the track. It is not about working hard. It is not even about working smart. It is about ruling smart. About rising above the machinery of labor and morality, designing systems that serve you while others serve them. The man who understands this truth will no longer be a servant of effort. He will become its master.